So I'm finally back with another tutorial after many months. I know, I'm so sorry. I was in Malaysia over the summer just dealing with some like family things, so I couldn't really post anything. But now I'm back in London and I've just finished Fashion Week, so I finally have time to film and record videos. So this tutorial is going to be a video about the V-neck sweater that I posted on my TikTok like ages ago. Some people asked for tutorials, so I thought this would be something easy and quick to post while I work on my next series, which is something I posted about on my Instagram. So if you want to follow my Instagram, then I will leave the handle somewhere, but I post a few things regarding my videos on there, so do follow if you want to see things before I post them on YouTube. So yeah. I originally made this sweater like years ago. This was the sweater that I posted on my TikTok about my like crochet then versus now video, and this was my crochet then and people want a tutorial for it, so I thought why not, it's like fall now, I might as well. So the problem is I don't remember what yarn or hook I used for that original sweater, but I do remember how I did it, so I will show you using the Paintbox Simply Chunky, and I think I'm gonna use a 10 or a 12mm hook, I'm not sure yet, but I will let you know. Okay, so just for the sake of speed, I'm going to use a 12mm hook so this goes by faster, but you can use any hook and also any yarn that you want. I'm just going to use a bulky because it's warmer. And I've bought about 6 balls of it. I'm not sure how much I'll need, but I will write down once I'm done how much I ended up using. And the color that I got is champagne white. So this top is made in 4 pieces, so 2 sleeves, a front and a back. The first one that I did was like really cropped, so if I have enough yarn I think I might do a longer version, but you can make yours however long you want, however wide. You can make the v-neck however deep you want it to be, and I will show you how to customize it to how you want. So to start, I'm actually going to use this little contraption here. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but it is a yarn winder, and I did buy it because I actually recently bought a knitting machine, like one of the flatbed ones, and you need to like roll up the yarn properly so that you can actually use the machine, otherwise it just gets really tangled. I learned that from experience. So yeah, I bought one of these and it's actually so great because it is huge, so it should be able to wind up all of this chunky yarn. So to start my top, I'm going to use a foundation half double crochet, but you can obviously just make a chain and then half double crochet back along it. I'm not going to show how to do the foundation half double crochet, but there are loads of tutorials on YouTube if you do want to use that. So I'm just going to do my foundation chain, and I'm gonna make this foundation chain the width that I want my sweater to be. So I'm gonna start, this is gonna be the front piece. And you wanna make sure that the number you chain or that you foundation half double crochet is an even number. Okay, so I've done 34 half double crochets and this measures out to be about 48 centimeters long. And just for reference, this is what it looks like compared to me, so I am making it quite oversized, but you can make it however big you want. So this is mine, and then for the second row I'm gonna chain 2, and I'm not gonna count these chains as stitches because I don't want there to be gaps in the side of my top. So I'm gonna chain 2, turn my work, and then I'm going to half double crochet into that very first stitch here, except I'm going to do it into the back loop only. Like that, and I'm going to do 1 half double crochet in each of the back loops only for the rest of the row. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end of this row, so I'm going to do my last few half double crochets, and then for the next row I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to chain 2, turn the work, and then I'm going to half double crochet into the back loops only, starting with this very first stitch here because these chain 2s don't count as stitches. So I'm going to keep crocheting rows of half double crochets until I reach the length of the bottom of my sweater till the bottom of where I want the v-neck to sit. So just to show you, it would be useful if you had a measuring tape, but you really don't need one. You can just kind of hold it to yourself to see. But I'll probably want the bottom of my sweater to sit around like here, and I want the bottom of my v-neck to be about here, so I'll measure from here down to where I want the bottom of my sweater to be, and then I will keep crocheting rows until my piece is this long. So for me, that's about 32 centimeters. Okay, so I've crocheted 14 rows of my top here, and I'm going to start working on the v-neck. So I've added, I say 2 stitch markers, but they're actually earrings because I can't find any of my stitch markers, but in the middle. So I've done 34 stitches in total, so I've counted 17 down, and then I've just put 2 stitch markers because that's going to be 17 from this side and then 17 from this side. So for this next row, we're going to start just like normal. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to half double crochet in the back loops until I reach my first stitch marker. Okay, so I've done my half double crochets until I'm 1 stitch away from where my first stitch marker is. So there's technically 2 stitches left in this half of the top. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and for the last 2 stitches, I'm going to do a decrease. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the back loop, pull through a loop, insert my hook into the back loop of the next stitch, pull through a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on my hook. And then I'm going to chain 2 to start the next row, and then flip over the work, and then I'm going to start this row with a decrease as well. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the first back loop, pull through a loop, insert my hook into the next back loop, pull through a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. And then I'm going to do a half double crochet in the back loop, in all the back loops, till the end of the row. So basically what we're doing is we're just going to keep decreasing on this side to create that v-neck, and then when we do this side, we'll also decrease on the inside here, and it will make a v shape. So I'm nearly at the end of this row, and I'm just going to finish it off like normal, doing my half double crochets until the end. That, and then I'm going to chain 2, and then flip the work. And I'm going to half double crochet until there's 2 stitches left at the end of this row. Okay, so I've got 2 stitches left at the end of this row, and I'm going to decrease again. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the back loop, pull through a loop, yarn over, insert my hook into the back loop, pull through a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on my hook. And then chain 2, turn our work, and then start this row with a decrease as well. So yarn over, insert your hook into the back loop, pull through, insert into the next back loop, pull through a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So as you can see here, we're creating a kind of V-shaped, and you just want to keep repeating these rows until you've kind of reached however deep you want the V-neck of your top to be. So just to show you how I would figure out how many rows I want to do, I would lay my top so where I want the bottom of the V-neck to be. So say I want my V-neck to start here, I would keep crocheting rows until it basically reaches the top of my shoulder, because this is where we're going to stitch the shoulder to the back piece. So I'd probably do about 3 or 4 more rows until I reach the top of my shoulder, and then I will start doing the other side. Okay, so I did 7 rows from the bottom here up to here, so 7 rows of decreasing on one side of the row. So when I hold it up to my body, it comes up to the top of my shoulder. So now I'm going to do the other side. So to finish off this side, I'm just going to chain 1 and then leave a long tail to sew the shoulder piece, so when we sew the front and the back together. So to start the next row, I'm just going to insert my hook, and we're going to start from the middle going outwards because we want to follow the same kind of pattern that our rows were going. So I'm going to make a slip knot, insert my hook, yarn over, and then I'm just going to take out my stitch marker and insert my hook where that stitch marker was. And so we're going to start this row with a decrease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull through a loop, and then insert my hook into the back loop of the next stitch, pull through a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on my hook. And that way we've started this row with a decrease. Like that. And then I'm going to yarn over and just keep doing half double crochets into the back loops until the end of the row. So we're just doing the same thing that we did for the other side, except we're starting in the middle of the top. So once I've reached the end of my row, I'm just going to do my last half double crochet like normal, and then chain 2, turn my work, and then half double crochet down this row until there's 2 stitches left at the end. Okay, so I now have 2 stitches left in my row. I'm going to do a decrease, so yarn over, insert my hook in through the first back loop, and then insert my hook into the next back loop, pull through a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on my hook. And so once I've done this, I'm just going to keep going until I've done 7 rows in total, so it's the same as the other side. So I finished crocheting the front piece of my sweater, and this is what it looks like. I just did 7 rows on each side for the V-neck, and so for the back piece now we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're not going to make a V, so it's just going to be like a big rectangle. So you're going to want to do however many stitches you did for this front piece, and then the same amount of rows from the bottom all the way to the top here. So for me, I did 34 foundation half double crochets, and then I did 21 rows, so mine is going to be 34 stitches by 21 rows big, my back piece. Okay, so for my back piece, I did a foundation half double crochet of 34, and then to start the row, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the front piece, so chain 2, and then just half double crochet into all the back loops for 21 rows. Okay, so now it's been a few days, and I made my first sleeve, except I realized I only had this much yarn left, so I had to reorder more yarn, and it only arrived yesterday, so now I will show you how to make the sleeve. So my sleeve is the exact same as my back piece, it's just a big rectangle, except this piece is 40 stitches by 16 rows. I will put the dimensions up for like my actual piece, so if you do want to copy me, you can. But this is what it looks like when I put it on. If you do want, for my original one, I made it like an extra 4 stitches longer, and then at the end you can like fold it up if you want a cup sleeve, but I didn't for this one. But if you do want to be able to like roll up your sleeve at the end, then do make it a bit longer than you need. So as I said, this piece is the exact same as the back piece, it's just a big rectangle, but I will show you again how I start mine in case you want to see it again. So I make a slip knot, and I'm going to half double crochet, and I'm going to do a foundation chain. So I'm going to do this until I have 40 half double crochets, and then I will meet back with you. Okay, so I've done my 40 half double crochets, and now to start my next row, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work, and for this project I'm not counting the chain 2s as a stitch, so I'm going to yarn over and crochet into this very first stitch here. So I'm going to go into the back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And I'm just going to keep half double crocheting down all the back loops until I reach the end of the row. Okay, so I'm nearly done with this row. I'm going to half double crochet into my last few stitches. And then for the next row, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to chain 2, flip it over, and then half double crochet in all the back loops. Now I'm just going to do this for 16 rows in total, and that's going to be all my pieces done. Okay, so I finished crocheting both of my sleeves, so I have both pieces here, and I've just left like the ball attached to sew it together. And then I have my front and my back piece, so I'm going to show you how to assemble it all. Before I assemble it all, I would recommend blocking it. I'm not going to, but like I recommend you do it. I'm just not going to because I'm too lazy, but like I eventually will. I would block the pieces first and then stitch it together because that will just be easier in my opinion. But you can also just stitch all together and then block it afterwards, which is what I'm going to do. So if you've seen my flower sweater tutorial, I'm going to attach these pieces the exact same way as that. So I'm going to do the front and back pieces, and then I'm going to attach the arms on the sides, and then I'm going to like stitch it up the side and then the sleeve. So I will show you like close up how I do that. Okay, so I've got my back piece here, and I've just laid my front piece on top, and I've grabbed a needle. This is the biggest one that I have. It's like a plastic one. I think it came for like free in a package of yarn that I bought. So I'm just gonna use this, and then this is the piece of yarn that I left like attached. I cut off like a really long piece so I could use it to sew, but if you didn't do this, you can just use a new piece of yarn. That's completely fine. I just do this so like I have less ends to weave in. Okay, so I've got my yarn threaded, and I've counted how many stitches I have here. So I have 11 stitches in total. So I'm going to count back from here 11 stitches, and then I'm just going to mattress stitch through each stitch. So I've got my yarn attached here. I'm just going to go through the 11th stitch on the back piece. Like that. And then I'm going to go through the next stitch, and then through the next stitch on the other piece. Like that. And then I'm going to go through the front piece, and the back piece, and just repeat this till I reach the end here. And then once I've stitched off at the end, I'm just going to go through the back piece again, through the front, and then tie a knot. And then from here, I'm just going to weave in this end through this top piece. And then once you've weaved in that end, you can just cut that off, and your joins should look like this. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. This side is easier because we're starting from the edge, and we can just go that way. In through the first stitch. In through the back piece in the next stitch, and then in through the front piece. In through the front, and then through the back. Once I've reached the end, again, I'm just going to tie a knot. Okay, now to stitch my sleeve to the actual body piece, I'm just going to open this up and make sure the bit where I just sewed is like facing me, because this is going to be the inside. So we want to do all the stitching on the inside of the jumper so that we can't see it. And then I'm going to take my sleeve, and I'm just using the edge that like doesn't have the long end attached, because I'm going to use this to then sew up like down the side. So I'm going to leave this on like the outside, and I'm going to use this end to stitch to the body. So my sleeve is 16 rows in total, so I'm going to count 8 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's like the middle, so I'm going to stitch it, make sure the middle is lined up with this middle bit of the, or like where this top was stitched together. Okay, so I just got like a bobby pin to use to like mark out the middle of my sleeve here, and I've just attached it to this seam here just to make sure that when I'm sewing it, I'm like lining it up in the middle. So I've just taken like a new strand of yarn. And you can either choose to do a mattress stitch, which is what we just did here, I think. You can do the same thing, or you can go like around, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll show you how I do that. So I'm going to count 8 rows down just to make sure that I'm like lining it up properly. So 8 row, I'm going to go in through the bottom, and then in through the 8th row here. And this doesn't have to be perfect, I'm just kind of like roughly doing it. So I've just gone in through the sleeve and out through the body piece. And then I'm going to go in through the sleeve again. And then out through the body piece. So instead of going in through the side we just came out, I'm going to go around. So once I've reached my middle, I'm just going to take out this stitch marker, and I'm going to make sure I stitch the middle of the sleeve to the seam. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my stitch marker again, and I'm just going to go through the bottom of my, or like the top of my sleeve here. And then I'm going to count 8 rows down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just attach it with my bobby pin there, just so that I know where my sleeve should like end, so that I don't like stretch it and sew it too low. Okay, so once I reach the end, I'm just going to take out my stitch marker and then sew in my last stitch. Like that. So my closure looks like this. The reason I like doing this on the edge between my sleeve and my the edge of my piece is because you can't really see it through the other side, whereas these, like on the sleeves for some reason, they kind of like divot and you can see that there's like a stitch or like a seam there. So I like doing this just because it looks more flat. So I'm just going to tie this off with a knot. And then I'm going to weave in this end. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the other side for the other sleeve, and then finally I will show you how to stitch up like the whole piece. Okay, so I've stitched both of my sleeves together and my front and back piece, so now I'm going to show you the final step, which is stitching the sleeves, like down the side of the sleeves. So you're going to want to fold your piece in half so it kind of looks like a top, and you want to make sure the seams are still on the outside. And I'm going to start on the sleeve here, and I'm just going to pull out a really long tail because I still have my ball of yarn attached, and I'm just going to cut a very long piece, long enough to go down all the way down here and down the side of the top, and then double it. Okay, so I've got my sleeve here, and I'm just going to mattress stitch down the sleeve. So I'm going to insert my hook through the first stitch on the other side. And then I'm going to go through the second stitch on the same side, and then through the next stitch on the other side. So the same that we did for the front and back piece. So I'm just going to keep doing this down until I get to the armpit of the top. Okay, so I've nearly reached the armpit, I just have a few more stitches left. This is the last stitch here in my sleeve. I'm just going to go through them both. And then for the side, I'm going to continue mattress stitching down the side. So I've ended on this side, I'm going to go in through the side of the body. And I'm going to go through both of those stitches there. And then from there, I'm going to go in through the top. And then in through the bottom, and just mattress stitch down the side of the top. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end of sewing these two pieces together. So I'm going to go through the last couple stitches. Like that, and then I'm just gonna kind of tie all these knots, all these pieces together, and then weave them all in. And I'm gonna do the exact same for the other side. Okay, so I finished stitching everything together, I weaved in all the ends, and this is the final product. I'm still gonna eventually block it. I don't know when, but I will. I'll probably just put it in the wash, and then like when it dries, I'll just stretch it out, because I'm very lazy, but this is what it looks like when I put it on. It's like super stiff and chunky right now because I do really need to block it. Okay guys. Also, if you wanted to, you can roll up the sleeves, which is what I did for my original top. Like that. Yeah, maybe I will make a video on how I block my projects when I come to block this one, but that is for another day. So, as usual, if you have any questions, do just leave them in the comments and I will try to reply. I will do my written pattern and leave that in the comment or description as well. And if you do have any suggestions on winter projects I could make, then please feel free. I would love to hear any ideas. Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you could follow along.